So for this unit to go over homework, it's probably going to be easier to actually see what's going on as opposed to me just showing you answers because all of constructions are very active type problems. So let's go over to homework for this first unit on constructions, okay? So let's see, let's pull up our camera here. All right, so we're copying the segments. To copy a segment, all I need to do is copy the length. So I set my point up at one end and my pencil marker at the other end. And I like to make my mark so you can actually see the length. And I'm going to make a random, what we call our baseline. I'm going to set my point at one end of the baseline and make my mark at the other. And there we go. So this is A prime, B prime. I'll call them A prime, B prime so we can see which one it comes from. I do the same with C and D. So I'll copy, set up and copy this. Give myself a baseline. If they already give you a baseline, you don't need to do that step there. Don't worry about the rest of the other information. And let's get EF now. So EF, I'll measure the length of EF. Give myself a baseline for EF. And I'll copy the length. Get a point. And if you're off a tiny bit, that's not a big deal, okay? But leave your construction marks so I can see what you did, okay? Now I want to use those segments to construct line AB plus CD. So I'm just going to start with a long baseline with a point here. So AB, I'm going to go back up here and get the length of AB. There's AB. I'm going to copy that down to my baseline that I drew. So there's AB. And now CD, I'm going to add to the end of that. So I'm going to go up here and get the length of CD. Add that to the end of this. So there is segment AB plus CD. I'll put my endpoints on the end of it. Next one, wants AB plus 2EF plus CD. It's going to be a long one, so let me draw a pretty long baseline here. All right, so I got a long baseline. My endpoint is all the way over here. So AB, let's go up here and get AB back. And it's 1AB, so off to my endpoint here. 1AB plus 2 EFs, so I'm going to need an EF. So come back down here. I want 2 EFs. So from the end of this, there's 1 EF. And paper right away here. So from that mark, another EF. Minus a CD. So now I'm going to get a CD and I'm going to go back in the other direction. So let me go get my CD. And this time I'm going back in the other direction. So from the end of it, I'm going to go backwards. And that's going to put my mark right there. So now between these 2 points is AB plus 2 EFs minus a CD. Let's construct an isosceles triangle with the base congruent to CD and the legs to AB. I already have CD on my compass here. That was the last thing I used. So let me draw a baseline. Okay. So whoops, that did show up. Move some stuff out of the way. So the base is congruent to CD, and I still have CD on my compass, so I don't need to get it back yet. So there's the base of my isosceles triangle. My legs are congruent to AB. So I'll go up to my top here. I'll get my length of AB. And And the legs of the isosceles triangle are going to be that big. So I'll come back down to the bottom. I'll go, okay, so the legs. One leg is somewhere over there, but I'm not sure where exactly. The other leg comes from the other point. So I set my compass point there, somewhere there, and there's my intersection. So I connect those points there. There we go. Okay. So these are pretty easy constructions to work with. Let's look at the back page now. Copying angles. Copying angles is a little trickier. So I'm going to start with a line to copy my angle to. Let's copy it to this. Okay. First thing we do to copy an angle is get a measurement. Now these actually have curves on them, but I never trust those curves. I like making my own curves. Okay, so let's see. I'm going to make a curve. Remember not to go too small. Take that curve and copy it over to here. Pretty good. I'm not sure how big it's going to open. Now I want to measure the distance that it opens. So from this point to that point. So there to there. Okay. And I'm going to take that distance down to this point and copy it. So I set up here and I copy that distance. There we go. There's my new point. Connect the dots. Okay. Let's do that again with the next one. Again, I like drawing my starting point. Need a baseline to start with. If they don't already give you. Put a curve through my angle. I don't trust the one they gave me. I'm going to put my own. And my hand's in the way here. Okay, so that point to that point. Copy that curve over to mine. Pretty big because it's going to be an obtuse angle. Measure the distance between my points. Okay, take that distance over to here. There's my new point. So connect those dots. There we go. Okay, one more problem to work with. This one's a little trickier. Construct a ray below for this equilateral triangle. On this ray, let's say on the ray, construct an equilateral triangle with vertex V. The sides must be equal to the diagonal. Okay, so I need to get the length of a diagonal. The diagonal is from one corner to the other. So I need that length. So from R to T is that length. That's the length I'm going to be using on my triangle. So I first need to find out how long the base is. It's equilateral, so it's going to be the same thing. And now, just like our isosceles we just did, from each endpoint, I need a curve. One there, over this side, one there. Here's my intersection. Connect the dots. There we go. There's my triangle. Last thing. This one's a good one. Construct angles to create parallel lines from the corresponding angles. Remember that parallel lines are parallel if the corresponding angles are congruent. So if I take this angle and copy it up here somewhere, let's go to another, let's create a point. I'm going to go through that point. So if I copy this angle to here, then I'll have parallel lines. So I'm going to start with my curve. And I'm going to take that over to here. Make sure it crosses the line here. If you don't cross the line, extend it. In fact, I'm going to extend mine just to be a little safer. Okay, you can always extend your curves. Now, I'd like to sort of keep things organized. I'm going to go from here to there. So that measurement. So from there to the bottom. And I'm going to take that measurement and copy it up here, from there to the bottom. There we go. So what I can do now is copy that, add in my last line. These two angles are now congruent corresponding angles, which means these lines must be parallel. Okay. Great. We'll practice more of this tomorrow and learn some new constructions.